Welcome to Unlocking Your Truth, another podcast by Dr. Leslie Phillips.
Well, hello, listeners. You are tuning in to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie and Corey.
Hello, everyone.
Broadcasting on 101.7 FM across the Fraser Valley from the unceded territory of the Stolo Nation. Well, if you're a new listener to Unlocking Your Truth, you may not know all about us and what we do. So let me explain. Unlocking Your Truth is a talk show, and we focus on metaphysics and spirituality. And we're here every Tuesday on 101.7 FM from 7 to 8 p.m. on a Tuesday. And we like to bring on fantastic guests to introduce you to on Unlocking Your Truth, and today is no exception. We've actually got a wonderful guest today.
Yay!
Yeah. Her name is Kaliyani Sundari, and she is a spiritually inspired visionary. She is a conscious media producer, and she's an author and facilitator of sacred circles.
Wow.
She's committed to the renaissance of the sacred feminine in our collective consciousness, and this is reflected in her work as a recording artist. And she's available for you to watch her videos on YouTube. And I think the best way to do an introduction to Kaliyani is actually to play one of her tracks right now, and then we'll welcome her to the show and have a conversation.
That was wonderful.
Well, thank you so much, Kaliyani, and welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me here.
Yeah, it's really great to have you, and I think your music is beyond words. And I think I've heard you describe it that way yourself, that it's beyond words, that you find that words are a low vibration form of communication, and that your music enables you to convey so much more than the spoken word. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I'm I guess I'm just listening to the universe speak to me through this language, and I'm a true believer that there's much higher forms of communication than our language allows for, and I'd like to say a paradoxical relationship with words, because I understand the importance of communication on a certain level, and we can make it so beautiful with poetry, right?
Mm-hmm.
With high elevated forms of writing, but still there are certain things that cannot be spoken. There are certain frequencies, understandings that either our consciousness is not ready for, because there would be no way to introduce it on a logical sense to understanding. It's just too far, probably ahead of its time, the vibration, or and there's a feeling, the feeling tones that are not translatable into words. And I think I was really blessed with being the, I guess, a steward for this beautiful transmission. I call it a transmission because it isn't mine, and I feel really honored to be channeling this form of communication, and
Yes.
very humbled, actually.
It's like the Himalayan singing bowls. I mean, if you haven't heard them, you just can't describe it to people. Words don't have sufficient meaning for those.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Kaliyani, how did you come to discover that you were a channel for divine transmission? How did that come about? Tell us a little bit about your life and when you started doing this, and how it evolved.
Yeah, I find this is something that everyone wants to know, and I find it the most difficult thing to explain, because it actually there wasn't any huge potential aha moment. It was sort of an evolution that just brought me to it, delivered me to it. It was very seamless, I guess. I was a very curious child, and I had an out-of-body experience as like an 8-year-old or 9 years old. I can't remember exactly my age, but because I had my bunk bed, my mother says I was probably already 9. And I remember just in the middle, I was a very happy child, very energetic and expressive and very funny. And one day I just got very circumspect, and I walked up to my bunk bed. I used to sleep on top of my sister in the bottom, and I just had this out-of-body experience where I was taken out into the cosmos, and I saw the whole universe pop, like the planets disappearing as I went farther back and back, then the constellations and all the what do you call them, galaxies were disappearing, and I saw myself in complete darkness, alone. And I thought to myself, must be where God is. And I was a child who prayed a lot, because my mother was somebody who believed in prayer. She didn't go to church. She didn't make us go to church. But she was raised very much in the church environment, but not for us. And then I came back, and I had lost my identity the minute I I thought to myself, must be where God is. I was brought back into my body really fast, and I sat up like I was coming out of, like I came at fast speed into my body, and I got startled, and my heart was beating really fast, and I sat up, and I couldn't remember who I was, where I was, what that was. Nothing had a name. I couldn't remember my mother, my grandma, my sister, nothing. So from that point on, or who knows where anything begins, but I was very curious of philosophy, religion, I would say the cosmic codes of the universe. I have dabbed into anything from numerology to Kabbalah to astrology to, in my teens, I was already doing hands-on healing and taking people's pains away. I believed that there was much more to our nature than this nature. And then when I was 22, I met my husband, I got married, I had 4 kids, and the whole thing went into a different direction. I'm not going to go into details. It was very funny because I never wanted to get married. I did not want to get married. I didn't want to get married, period. Never wanted to get married. But somehow I ended up marrying at 23, 24. And I had 4 kids, and I devoted my life to them. Once I commit, I commit. I was very loyal to that life. And then after my divorce, which catapulted a whole bringing back of who I was, because it's almost like I took a hiatus to fulfill a certain contract. I feel it was a soul contract. I needed to bring these 4 beings into the world. I needed to be with my ex-husband, and then it's almost like this avalanche of my soul fell back on me again, and I was devouring books. I would go to the Bodhi tree shop and come with 30 books, and it was like I was back home again, and I was just like breathing all about spirituality. And then I was taken into this prayer that my life was upside down as I was divorcing, and I was called to do this prayer. It's a beautiful prayer. I don't know this prayer in English, but I was born in Brazil. So there is a beautiful prayer called Prece de Caritas, and it's in Portuguese. And it's so big. I remember vaguely about it. I never knew how to pray the whole thing, and I asked my mom, can you give it to me? I called her, and she gave me the prayer. I wrote it down. It was 3 pages, handwritten, and every morning before I put my feet down, I would pray it, and every night before I would go to sleep is the last thing I did. And that went for weeks, and all of a sudden the whole world kind of came apart and brought back together again. It's almost like all the truth was revealed of the truth about my life, and I got to know what I didn't know. And then this presence of the divine feminine started showing up everywhere. And that's the point I'm trying to get to as fast as I can. Yeah. I was seeing this figure sometimes through windows, through etched glass. I remember we had a beautiful etched glass mosaic window. And everywhere I looked, either books I read or something, there was something about this feminine presence, even though the prayer I was doing was a prayer for the Christ. It was a traditional prayer, a Catholic Christian prayer, not Catholic, but Christian. And it was to Jesus or the Lord. And but what kept coming to me was this feminine presence, and I didn't know her name. And then a little more, it started to reveal it was an Asian figure, and with a bun on top of her head, very beautifully dressed. And I had a helper at the time, and she was clairvoyant, and she told me the Buddha lady was around me. She kept calling her the Buddha lady. And we had dreams, and she appeared in dreams like with her laser eyes, 360-degree head, lasering these blackbirds flying over my head, lasering them, pulverizing them. There's so many incredible. And then I came across books where I would read the Bodhisattva vow, and the book would just literally fall off my hand, and it was like my chest was hit by a force, and I couldn't quite understand everything that was happening. But then I was told that it probably was Kuan Yin,
Yes.
the Bodhisattva of compassion.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I got a little white statue of her, and I had been buying crystals at that time before I got the statue, and I had this beautiful jewelry that had her image in it, and I didn't know who she was. And I remember when I traveled home, I was really sad, and I went to tell my mom that I was going to have a divorce, and this pendant started to burn, and I said, I feel that I need protection, I need protection 24/7. I need to call upon my guides to protect me, my family. And the pendant started to burn my skin. And then I grabbed it and I continued to talk. And my mother said, why are you doing that? Why are you holding your pendant this way? And I said, oh, I didn't even notice. It was burned. And she grabs and she says, well, it's cold. And I said, well, I don't know. And things like that kept happening. So I basically feel, I was taken from there to this awakening into the divine feminine, which was sort of, I guess, not at the forefront of my awareness growing up. And I was brought more and more into it through different paths, I attended a big event where Amma, the hugging saint from India, was at, and she hugged all my children. They were very little, and she gave me a big hug. And then later, a couple of years later, I went to another one, and at that time I was already involved in conscious media, and somebody directed me to a pamphlet about a talk she gave at the UN, and that pamphlet described her speech, and it was guiding me towards a book, and I felt extremely attracted to read that book immediately. It's there's just an inner knowing or a guidance that I was feeling really, and I felt like my whole life towards this has been just this this flowing towards certain things that I just feel I'm meant to touch, read, speak to, whatever it is, and I just follow, and so this book kind of opened a whole new field, and I started researching, and I feel like this energy, this presence was guiding me, and I got to discover certain things that just ignited my spirit with a whole new way to look at the world, to look at life, to look at ourselves, and to break through our limited concepts. That's why Kaliyani's motto, I guess, or mission is to break through our limiting concepts of reality and learn to look at life and our belief systems all over again, and understand, why do I believe this? Who gave me this belief? Is this really mine? Or is this who I really am? And then try to look at life from a completely new perspective and new possibilities. And one day I just, I was part of a project that I was going to go to India, and I was scheduled to do some shoots and videos for a project called Peace Link Live that I was the founding executive producer for, as a peace platform. And that got postponed. And I found myself with 2 weeks to myself, completely alone, which was rare because I had 4 children. I shared custody at this time with my husband. I had a partner at the time. And I went into meditation and I asked Spirit, what am I supposed to do with all this time? Because it's so precious. And Spirit said, you're supposed to be doing your projects, not continuing to invest your time to be the wind beneath other projects. Just focus on what is your calling. And I wanted so much to create a documentary film on the divine feminine, a very artistic and very musical one. I had already done a documentary called Secrets of Love in partnership with Bill Wade. And I knew what it took, and I wanted to create some beautiful art, music, film depicting the history of the sacred feminine and how we got out of touch with that, and how our society and our world is on the verge of just having to face maybe transformation, profound transformation, because it's disconnected from that.
Yeah.
I see you a little bit.
Wait, yes, we're going to take a break now. Thank you so much, Kaliyana. Listeners, you're listening to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie and Corey, and today's guest, Kaliyani. And we are, after these messages, we're going to come back and talk some more with Kaliyani about the divine feminine and about her absolutely inspirational and uplifting music that she does. Welcome back, listeners. You are tuning in to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie and Corey. And today's guest is Kaliyani, and she is a visionary conscious media producer who produces audio video recordings that you can watch on YouTube that are divinely inspired. And before the break, she was explaining a little bit of the background to how she came to be a divine channel for this high frequency raising music and information that comes through her, and was explaining that her calling has to do with really bringing back the divine feminine. And I know one of your projects, Kaliyani, is Tears for Inanna. And I wanted to ask you about that. I wanted to ask you, because Inanna comes from ancient Sumeria. She's an ancient Sumerian goddess. And I wonder where the inspiration for that piece came from and how it came, because you were talking about Kuan Yin and being inspired by Kuan Yin, the goddess of compassion. So tell us a little bit about Inanna and what she means to you, and what the myth of Inanna means to you, and how that came through you into this uplifting piece of art that you've produced.
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, like I said, I follow the guidance, right? So I discover the whole entire new world of history that we have not been taught. With it came the origin of our language and origin of the beginning of what we know written history to be. And what was fascinating to me, not that I didn't know about that epoch, but as I dove deeper into the Sumerians, I realized that they had knowledge that, just like the Egyptians, we still cannot explain. Okay, their reliefs had already images of the galaxy or the solar system, for sure, the solar system depicted and other things. And what was most fascinating to me is that there's 3 different versions to the Enuma Elish tablets. Most of the known ones are from the Babylonian times, but the original ones, which are older, maybe up to 6,000 years ago, the creationary myth, just like we have our Christian creationary myth, and of Adam and Eve, they have a creationary myth where the God who created the universe and all beings and all creatures and all gods under it was a female god. So the concept of creation from a female archetype, because I don't believe gods are male or female, but just the understanding of the possibility that we could feel and look into the world through that lensing was really unique and extraordinary. And it was something that I felt I was meant to bring into the world. Not because we are going to now say God is female or God is male, but because it's a flavor that we need to taste, let's say it this way, or it's something that we need to acknowledge within ourselves, that we need to merge these concepts of a masculine or feminine God and embracing both of it. That, our history is really a blink in the eyes of eternity. The fact that we have 6,000 years of written history is nothing compared to millions and billions of years of this earth and of this solar system. And so I've gained a perspective of life that's way beyond what we have known and what we believe to be true. And I live outside right now in my own universe, and I just continue to listen and to follow and to create inspirational art or music in whatever it comes through. And I think Inanna, to answer your question, to me, my understanding, she is the precursor to all goddesses. If you dive deep into all the ancient goddesses and going into the Romans and the Greeks and all the way into our Christian and Virgin, she is behind it all. She was number one in our written history. I'm talking about what we know as history, and it's prehistory. It's not history. You cannot search this unless you say prehistory, right? If you look history of Sumeria, they're going to give you Babylon. You got to say prehistory because it's hidden under this code of prehistory. It's not acknowledged as history. Right. So, but there's so much there that it was an awakening, a huge, beautiful awakening, and I feel it's where we're going as a human race. We are integrating things that we lost that are part of us, all of us, men and women alike. Mm-hmm. Our feminine women have become hardened, and men have lost touch with their femininities too. So because of the model of existence is very, very masculine. We call it masculine, but it's just a form of existing that we gave it a name, Yep. But we all have it. And I think the music is just bringing this flavor of this love, soft, intuitive, more hidden or potentiality, which is in the feminine, in awakening the feminine within us. It's the mystic. The mystics, they're in touch with their feminine, their intuition, their heart force, the love. It's what we're afraid to feel, afraid to exercise our presence, to not be in our heads so much, to be in our hearts more.
Yes, and I'm interested in people who listen to your music, what they say about it, because I do think that's one of the things that you're helping us to do, is to get out of the thinking mind, because that, having listened to some of it, basically that's what it's uplifting you to a higher vibrational frequency that's beyond the human condition. So what kinds of things have people said in listening to your music about their personal experience that you are helping open the portal for them to travel to?
Well, I think I don't know. I think if you look at the YouTube videos, there are quite a few comments under there, and they vary tremendously. And people have written to me saying that it changed their lives, that they listen to it every morning. Some people say they heal their vision. You know, there's all kinds of going on. But I think the most beautiful thing they say is this song has spoken the words that I am unable to, and they cry. I mean, some of my friends even who said, "Oh, I heard you recorded something in the beginning. Are you making me?" I said, No. I just did this because Spirit was guiding me to put this music into my documentary about the divine feminine, and I was just doing it. I'm not a musician or a singer. I never sang before. I don't know how to play Western instruments. I know how to play Native American flute, and I know how to play the Tibetan bows and crystal balls, and I played the frame drum. I've been learning how to play the frame drum to my circles, you know, and the Native American flute, but no Western instrument. I wasn't trained or in singing. And so I was very quiet about it. I didn't want anybody to know. And they said, "Well, please show me. Just, can I hear it?" And I said, "Okay." So I would just put my little burned CD and play for them. And the most beautiful thing is, I usually, at the time, I couldn't listen to it standing up or with my eyes open. I had to sit down and close my eyes because I would get dizzy, or I would get weak on my knees, or I would feel like this energy flowing through. I would get God pimples, you call it, like goosebumps, God bumps. You know, I like to say God bumps through my body. So I sat down, and most of the time I would just sit next to them and just put the CD, and I'll be quiet, like lower my head. And I was kind of shy, you know, because I wasn't really used to that. And they would just, like, they would just grab my arm, like grab me in the middle of the music and look at me, and their eyes were watering. And they would just like, "What?" And just like, and other people would just sob, like literally sob. They said their heart would burst open, and it's, this voice is speaking for them, something that they can't speak. And I think everybody has a different reaction, and I don't have any expectation. I feel like I actually don't see myself as a singer. I don't want to go on stage and sing or tour. I just want it to be out there for people. I've sung it twice in public, but as I say, it's like, it's not exactly something you're going to play in a party, you know? It's like you have to have the right environment. So, so it's beautiful to see, what it does to people. I think it opens their heart more than anything. If you're capable, if you have the ability to have your heart broken open, because some people are so hardened and they're not ready to feel everything there is to feel, because it's, when your heart is open, you feel the maximum joy, and you can feel the maximum sadness too. When your heart is open, there's no numbing through life. You have to feel everything, and it's a gift, and it takes being ready. You know, it's not for the faint of heart. You have to have courage to be able to allow the frequency to penetrate you, and let it wash over you with its message, right?
I have a friend of mine, Paul Armitage, and he channels music as well. I think everybody who writes music channels it in one way, shape, or form. But what he does is he uses an organ, you know, like a Moog synthesizer, and when he plays his music, it's very not similar to yours, but it sends people into deep meditation. And I remember one of the deepest meditations I ever had was a small concert of about 20 people that he put on privately. But what he does, one of the things he does is he'll channel music for a specific individual, and it's meant for that specific person, and it's inspired in essence through that person. And again, it's channeled and it's instantaneous. Have you ever written anything that was inspired by someone special in your life?
No, I think I feel the closest thing that I've done to that, I was part of a circle. I was in training on this beautiful method of facilitating circles, and diving into more of the different archetypes of the divine feminine. And at the end of this journey, that we had to gift one another with something from the heart. Some people, I received a painting from one of the women, and I gifted this other woman. We were blindly picked. We had to pick each other's names blindly. It's like you can't choose who you're going to gift. We're all the same and equal, and we're going to give a gift that is unique. And I did create a little melody, and I haven't published the song, and I created a little vocal for it, and I actually recorded it. It's called Heroine of Zion, and it's based on one of these, a friend of mine who was in the circle, a beautiful woman who, was journeying with us for 13 months. It's how long this journey lasts, this training. And it was the gift I gave her. It's a very, let's say, a Native American flavor. I played the Native American flute on that for about a minute. And then there is a beautiful choir of my own vocals that's overlaid 12 or 13 times. The voices are overlaid. It was a technique that formed like a choir, but it's all without language. It's just a vocal choir of sounds and frequencies. Yeah, I think that's the closest I got to it.
Sounds lovely. It actually sounds really lovely. Thank you.
So tell us about the process, because the process that you're doing, it's more of a flow and a channeling and an sort of open inspirational flow. So tell us how a piece is born through you, but also when it's come through once, how do you repeat that performance? Do you actually end up, transposing it into music, or does it just you can just slot into that vibration and deliver it?
Well, these 2 tracks that you can hear through YouTube. First of all, I've had some famous producers approach me saying, I want to create a whole CD with you. I just feel like I need to tell you this for you to understand the process. And I tell them, I'm sorry, I don't make albums. I make songs, and I make songs when they're ready to be revealed. I am not going to force something to just say I created an album. I feel I am a singles artist, and I feel that each one of the pieces are very unique and special. They come with a purpose and a specific sound transmission. And I add the visuals. It's like sound and light, right? The visuals are rich with messages. A picture paints 1,000 words. Whatever is not being said logically, I can add to in this, very mythic, symbolic. It's a language of symbols, and not everybody is going to understand, and not everybody's meant to understand. But each one of them is telling a story. Each one of them is talking of symbols and myths, and so it takes me a long time to actually. It takes as long as it needs to be, and I'm not always doing the same thing. I have many hats. I write books, I hold ceremonies, and I feel like I'm not committed to being just a singer or a musician. It's only an aspect of me. Kaliyani is an aspect of my soul. And what is beautiful on this journey is that I'm learning to accept that. First of all, I have allergy to labels. You see, if you ask me who I am, what I do in the world, I say, because people will see me as producers. If you look at my name, through LinkedIn, they think I'm a producer. If you look at my name through Facebook, they think I'm a singer. You go on different, and they don't really know what about you. And I say, I'm neither. I am just a spiritually inspired visionary, because that doesn't pigeonhole me. It doesn't put me on a box. It doesn't put me like, oh, now you're this and that's all you can do. I don't think we're meant to live this life. We're meant to be in the flow. And of course, I understand some people do love what they do and they want to do just that, and that's beautiful. And you can go really deep when you do that. It's not about creating a pattern for everybody else. Everybody has to find who they are and what their mission is. For me, is to be really in the listening and in the flow of creation. And if I'm being led by spirit to do some other kind of work, I'll go there. So my music is just there as a part of me. And whenever I feel deeply inspired, it has to be something that will shake my roots, that will, will call every part of me to that. Then something starts to come through. And when, for example, with the Musin vacation, I did feel I had a sense of what the music had to be for this this film that I haven't made yet. Because the music is the life of it.
Yeah.
And it took me a whole different journey.
So why don't we talk about the filmmaking when we get back after the next break? Listeners, you're tuning in to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie and Corey, and our guest, Kaliyani, who is channeling the divine feminine and following the flow of the universe in her pure creative expression of her divine being. We'll be back after these messages. Welcome back, listeners, to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie and Corey, and our guest this evening, who is Kaliyani. And I have to say, a truly inspirational guest, and someone who is, through the way that she's living her life, showing us a different way that humans can be. Showing us how humans can be the divine expression of themselves through how they create their lives. And before the break, we were talking about, Kaliyani was explaining how she doesn't like to give herself a label as a singer, a producer, or anything else, because then that is a limit. And that's one of the things we humans tend to do to ourselves. We stick labels all over ourselves. I'm a this and I'm a that, when really we are divine. We are expressions of the divine. And so another expression, Kaliyani, of your divine inspiration has to do with how you because you're also explaining before the break, you're not just delivering a frequency transmission through the sound, you're delivering a transmission through the symbolism in your videos as well. And so I'd like to ask you about the video production and how involved you are with that, and how you insert that symbolic expression through the language now of color and light that's coming through in the imagery that you're showing with the soundscapes that you're doing.
I am extremely involved. I am actually the one who I create the outfits. I choose the dresses, and like for Tears for Inanna, I made the whole costume. And the director actually would just say, go ahead, Kaliyani, and do your thing, because he couldn't really quite understand what I was doing. So he would just shoot me. And during the editing, I was extremely involved as well. I had to pick the parts that would create what I felt would be an arc of a story for my own, because I produce myself. I don't really have a producer. I I am my own, I'm creating from a different place, and I'm just listening and doing what I'm feeling is meant to be done. So I feel I have this freedom, which is beautiful, because then whatever I'm feeling and what's coming through is authentically what needs to, not some, there's no mix match. Whatever came as a song and as a vocal also gets translated that way. And of course, I had a beautiful team of people, and all of them contributed in some way. They always had something to say about a location. Oh, I feel if you're looking for this, how about trying? Because I would give them the idea. This is what I have in mind, like being in a place that's very rustic or very primordial in nature. Like imagine this, and that. So I would come up with I would like to be on top of the dunes, or and then I would like to be in a place that looks like another planet. And somebody goes like, oh, how about Mono Lake? I'm like, show me, what is Mono Lake? Oh, I didn't know about this. Oh my God, this is perfect. So there is a teamwork, but the concepts are primarily mine. And I go to great lengths to just make sure I'm getting as close as possible to the inner vision, right?
Right.
And sometimes most of the time it's not. It's just a fraction of what, because it's either too costly, too crazy, too time consuming to what actually the vision would be. And sometimes I wasn't able to translate exactly, but I have to say I was very happy with what was made so far.
And what other projects do you have? What are you working on at the moment, if anything?
I am working on my book. Yeah, I'm writing. I have a book, an anthology book that I was a part of, and that was a group of, I believe, 9 women in 2015, and it was all the proceeds of that book went to Women of Africa. It was a nonprofit organization that helps, a lot of our women who had no chance for an education to create businesses and support the community. So that was a beautiful project to be part of. Then I wrote a book when I was graduating from my spiritual psychology master's program, and I never published it. It's called Jewel in the Mud, A Jewel in the Mud. And this name also came into like a voice in my head. It was like, I stopped to think, what is this book meant to be called? And it was from the inside of my brain out. It was just the most incredible feeling. And but I never really published it, and I have a feeling this book will be the second one to be published and not the first. So right now I am writing another book, and I feel like I have a lot of books inside of me. But I was raising my children. My ex-husband passed away 4 years ago, and I had to walk away from being creative. I actually had to put my life back again into my children. And my last one just went to college, and I feel like now I'm having a little more time to focus on that. It's very, because a lot of this came very late in my life, Leslie. I didn't think it was the time, and I walked away from it. I actually, after I recorded the Musification, I recorded Tears for Nana, and then I said, I can't do this. And I walked away from it for 1.5 years, and people are like, you got to put the song out. I said, no, I'm not a musician. This is just for that. No, and it was like this fight inside of me. It's too late. I can't start a career now. And then I understood that Spirit was telling me it is exactly what it is, and how it is, it needs to go, because your voice and the timing is just perfect, because what it brings is people the change in their belief systems that you are a victim of right now. Because the fact that you think your age is any sort of limitation is also a belief system we need to let go. And the fact that Kaliyani started singing in her 40s, it's just not something that is wrong. It is what it is. And this will serve as an inspiration. And when I got that, I was like, okay, thank you. You know, I just needed spirit to come through in that way. And sometimes we're stubborn because we're all part of the conditioning. There's not a single one of us that is not part of this conditioning, this program that has been passed on to us for eons. And we have to revisit everything. We have to realize, who am I really? Which part of me is not that which I've been given, right?
Yeah.
So
who are you really?
the ultimate question. Yeah. Who am I? I'm just a humble server, you know, and whatever way I'm best fit to be, to spirit,
Yeah.
to light, to love in whatever form it comes through. Yeah.
Yeah, a channel of divine consciousness, and a beautiful, beautiful light that you're anchoring here. So I just want to check in with Corey how much time we've got left. Oh, lots of time. That's great. So we can continue. So it's so funny, you know, when I was thinking about interviewing you, I could tune into a lot of what you're saying. I mean, I know I started out asking you about your history and everything, but in some senses, I felt like it didn't. All that really matters is this presence right here, right now, and what's flowing right here, right now. So I do think you feel like you bring the energy of what you're expressing as part of your presence. So I'm just trying to think about what else to ask you about. You know, something else I was curious about, I picked up on that you said, at the very beginning, you said, this isn't me. What's coming through me isn't me. And yet, I think it is you. I just think it's a higher divine aspect of you. And I think later on you kind of expressed that yourself. So what's your current notion, experience of what it is that's happening through you, especially when it comes to that beautiful music? I mean, I know don't want to solely be defined as be defined as a musician, but it's like the angelic, the sphere of the angels coming on earth.
I agree with you. It can be defined. I don't like to put anything on a solid surface. I think it's important to respect everybody's concepts and ideas around what it is happening. But I do agree with you. It is potentially and most likely a higher aspect of me that I'm channeling. And it can be a sensitive thing to say that, but I think you could say it is an angelic voice. It could be Kuan Yin. It could be all the facets of the God essence, you know, as the embodiment of the feminine coming through in the best or whatever way it can come through, because it's such a high frequency vibration. But I guess it can be an aspect of all of us too. It is an aspect of all of us. It's that beautiful feminine aspect of all of us that is in a much higher frequency vibration of existence.
Yeah,
you know, that I was able to tap into for a moment.
Yeah. And ultimately, when you go back to the source of it all, like that experience that you had early in your childhood, that is where we are in the oneness. And therefore, it's like you're retrieving from the pool of the oneness into this realm where we're experiencing ourselves as individuals, something that is, even though it is a part of you, it is a part of all of us. So we've got a couple of minutes left. We're going to play out, listeners, with another one of Kaliyani's creations. So before we do play that, Kaliyani, for our listeners who want to find out more about you, keep in touch with what projects you're doing, how should they best do that?
It's interesting because in the last few months, I felt called to pull away and going to retreat. I've been retreating very much for a long time, but I would say check the website kaliyani.com. It's KALIYANI.com. And there's lots of podcasts and interviews and articles that were written that you can get a really nice, it's a beautiful website. I hope you enjoy.
Yeah.
Kaliyani.com, www.kaliyani.com.
Yeah, thank you. And listeners, I also encourage you to go onto YouTube and just search Kaliyani and watch her videos, because they are beautiful, and you won't be sorry. So listeners, you've been listening to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie and Corey and Kaliyani.
That's me.
Yes. And to play out today, we're going to listen to Namu's Invocation by Kaliyani.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you for joining us. You've been listening to another Unlocking Your Truth podcast by Dr. Leslie Phillips. For more information, go to our website at drlesleyphillips.com. That's drlesleyphillips.com, where you can ask questions or send her an email, and there's many free gifts on there for you as well. You can also find the questions that were asked during this show at the website on our free card reading podcast page, where you'll find a full list of them. Come back again.